record button and leave.
Maybe.
There you go. Okay. Thanks, Jeff. Well, good. Here's my official spiel, but I am pumped for this. Good afternoon. My name is Matt McGuire, and I am the member of the digital learning team in Anglophone West. I think you all know me. So I'm the subject coordinator for technology and trades. If this is your first time, which I know for sure, I think Bradley, were you in any of the other sessions? I think you were in my unveiling one. I think.
I think at the beginning, yeah.
At the beginning, okay, fantastic. And here's Crystal too, so that's great. Welcome to LEARNEast 2021 and the session that introduces the Center of Excellence for Energy. So I want to welcome Adam Trider, who I like to think of as the CEO of the COE at the EECD.
That's excellent. That's excellent. No one's ever called me that before. I love it.
There you go. Yeah, you can get business cards made with that on it, right?
I want to hear you say that fast 5 times, Matt.
Yeah. CEO of the COE at the EECD. It's not too bad. It kind of rolls off the tongue, actually. Anyway, Adam, thanks for taking the time to share your experiences and expertise today. I don't have to give the spiel about the chat window. It's this nice intimate group here, so that's great. But what I am going to do is I'm just going to pop into our chat window, just another little chance to register and win a prize for every session that people are attending. But other than that, excited to hear what we've got in store for the future of New Brunswick education here. So thanks, Adam, for joining us.
My pleasure. May I share my screen? Or do we need Jeff back to do that?
Oh my goodness. Is it grayed out for you?
It is.
Oh no. Okay. How embarrassing.
Well, that is all right. I didn't notice until you started talking that I didn't have presenter rights, but
you watch. Jeff's a maniac. He'll be back here in 14 seconds.
And it could be because I have my multiple personalities of my GNB and my NBED profiles. So he may have given permissions to EECD, but I've logged in as NBED. So it may be my fault.
Yeah, there he is back again. I bet you that's what happened. Thanks, Jeff. You're a good guy.
There we go.
You should now be good.
Jeff.
So how are we doing? Everybody seeing the screen?
Got it.
All right. Well, thanks very much again for having us in this afternoon. My name is Adam Trider. I'm the lead for the Center of Excellence for Energy. It's a new initiative under the umbrella of Future NB, which is really a goal of Future NB is to connect students with employers through rich learning opportunities and experiential education. So what we're trying to do with our Center of Excellence is connect the excellence and the expertise of the energy sector with students, families, and classrooms around the province. My position as the lead is to act as that hub in between the energy sector and the classrooms of New Brunswick. This afternoon, we're going to hear a little bit more about the Center of Excellence for Energy in part 1 of our presentation. And part 2, I'm really happy to introduce Brad Wasson, who is the Chief Digital Innovation Officer at NB Power, who's going to bring us some information about the digital innovations and changes that are occurring at the Power Corporation, and really show some of the highlights and future growth within the industry. It's a really exciting time to be in New Brunswick with lots of opportunities opening up at NB Power and really across all industries in our province, creating upwards of 120,000 job openings within the next 10 years. And with high schools in New Brunswick only graduating slightly less than 7,000 grads each year, it's going to create tremendous opportunities for our young people in the province. So like I said, I'm the hub in the middle there of the Center of Excellence model for linking the external partners like NB Power with the school system. The vision is to support schools by offering virtual learning supports and experiential learning opportunities within the school system. With the vision of really leading a shift in the delivery of public education with regards to workforce development by providing those learners with some innovative virtual and experiential learning opportunities that will connect the students to sector-specific expertise. The Center of Excellence for Energy is really focused on providing energy literacy through a variety of activities, learning activities that we've posted on our website. And I'll give you a sneak peek at that later on in our presentation. We're looking to create experiential learning opportunities within the energy sector, providing virtual learning supports for the teachers in the province, and providing career and personal growth opportunities for our students. When we're talking about energy literacy, we're really looking at students having an understanding of the nature and role that energy plays in their lives. We often don't really think about energy unless there's happen to be a circumstance when it's not there. For example, when the power goes out. We know we take a lot of things for granted about where energy comes from and how important it is to our daily lives. And we want students to know how much energy he or she uses and be able to make informed decisions about that energy use and be able to communicate that in meaningful ways to others. So those really are providing the backgrounders to the information that you'll see on the website as far as some of the learning opportunities that will be presented to students. Also, we're looking to expand experiential learning opportunities for those students as well that will include site visits to our partners, co-op placements, and mentorship opportunities with those industry experts, and a host of challenges and contests, weekly webinars, opportunities for students and teachers to engage in energy learning as they move throughout K-12 education. So it is an opportunity, I guess, for us to focus on wedging energy content into the current curriculum. The Centers of Excellence models is not about changing any current curriculum that's already out there, but looking for opportunities to include more energy education into all subject areas from K to 12. The Centers of Excellence is situated on the Anglophone sector, but we're sharing resources with the Francophone sector and are in conversations with them frequently to sort of find the best of both worlds, to marry what they do as far as bringing more experiential learning opportunities to the classrooms in the Francophone sector with a similar model on the Anglophone side. We're looking to provide virtual learning supports for classrooms around the province as well. So connecting classrooms to subject matter experts. Perhaps there's a classroom who's looking to investigate solar panels. Well, we've created connections around the province with solar installers that we can exploit to perhaps bring a solar installer to the classroom or bring a classroom to the solar installer if it's safe to do so. We're looking to create curriculum supporting activities to enhance the learning that's already happening in the classroom. We're developing an energy speaker series, which will connect virtually the experts around the province in the energy sector to the classrooms, and identify career pathways so students can enter the workforce knowing, or enter post-secondary opportunities, knowing exactly what opportunities there are in the workforce upon graduation. So really harnessing that labor market information that's already out there and exposing students to that so they can make informed decisions about their post-secondary pathways. We'll be creating virtual events, looking to engage students and teachers in weekly webinar series to do some learning either within the school day or after school. One of the challenges we've created early on is a wind energy challenge where students design wind turbine blades and challenge other groups within their classroom to create the most or the greatest amount of energy possible using just a household fan and a wind turbine kit that we'll provide to classrooms upon request. My hope is that we can also take that and bring the best teams from each school together to challenge each other provincially at some point this spring. We're working with NB Power to offer webinars during Nuclear Science Week, which is the third week of October. And there'll be more information coming to you via subject coordinators once the school year gets underway. And working with NB Power and our partners to create energy hackathons and creative problem solving competitions for students to attend virtually initially. And again, our hopes will be to bring students together in the spring to compete provincially at some kind of energy competition. Our current partners include NB Power. We're also working with the Gaia Project to harness their expertise and experience of bringing sustainability education to classrooms. And we've also partnered with the Atlantica Center for Energy, which is an industry group that creates connections of all across the Atlantic Canada with companies that are working in the energy field. We've been field testing some of our resources. So here you can see a wind energy kit that students at Deer Island Community School were working with earlier this spring, designing their blades and challenging each other to create the greatest amount of energy possible. And we're working on science of energy kits as well for middle school classrooms, just as a way to engage students in the topic of energy. It's not explicitly written into a lot of our science curriculum, but it's there as sort of a key concept that overarches all the years from K to 12 education. But we want to specifically point out the key points to energy education as they move through from grade level to grade level, so they can hit on some of those topics and have a better understanding and increase their energy literacy. We did a little bit of resource development earlier this summer. I had 17 teachers from across New Brunswick at a workshop in Fredericton, developing some resources that you'll see on our website. We also took a tour of Matiquac Dam, you'll see here is in the background, and just to learn about a little bit more about their infrastructure. And that's something that we want to bring to students as well, is to create those opportunities to attend or to interact with NB Power employees, to visit those sites so they can actually see where their electricity is coming from. For our center, our future growth, we're going to launch our website in September, ready to go for the back to school for teachers. We're seeking to add new partners within the energy sectors who are ready to bring their expertise to classrooms across the province. Continually adding new resources and developing new resources for teachers around the province, and expanding experiential learning opportunities in the form of co-op placements, mentorship, site visits, etc. We really see the benefit for partners is that it gives them an opportunity to engage in every school across the province and develop that talent ahead of time before they enter post-secondary. We want to increase the awareness of employment opportunities within our partners and also close skill gaps so they can work with the Center of Excellence staff to identify issues and maybe skills that they'd like to see in their future employees, and how we can highlight those using the existing curriculum. The Center of Excellence model is one of a series of centers. There's one opening soon for entrepreneurship. There's a Center of Excellence for Health, whose lead was just hired last week. And later this fall, we'll have a Center of Excellence for the digital economy as well. We used to have it sort of under the umbrella of cybersecurity, but we're trying to expand cyber to include other aspects of IT to really capture across the province those opportunities that exist. So at this point, I'm gonna just take a minute and do a sneak peek at the COE website just to show you what we've been working on, and then I'll turn it over to Brad to share some of his expertise as the Digital Innovation Officer at NB Power. So don't get too caught up on the URL. That's not the final one. We're going to have a GNB handle, so it will be gnb.ca/energy excellence will be our website. We're still working on tweaking our brand so it fits in here on the web page, but also the mobile browser. And really what we're excited about is featuring some of our activities that the teachers had worked on developing this fall. So opportunities like like engaging in solar panels, panels and wind turbines, but also just general energy literacy information that they can use within their classrooms. Activities are categorized from K to 5, 6 to 8, 9 to 12. So teachers will be able to sort by grade level, sort by language, sort by subject matter as well. But we're really trying to capture activities that they can use across K to 12 in all subject areas. This is still under construction here, our learning opportunities, but that's where we'll advertise our webinars, our co-op placements, our site tours, and our special events like Nuclear Science Week. So an area that will constantly be updated, so we encourage teachers to come back and visit often. Our speaker series will be highlighted here as well, where we'll have videos from our industry experts sharing some of their expertise, as well as some follow-up activities for classrooms to do. So if teachers are looking for information, perhaps on advanced metering or smart grid, they'd be able to click on a speaker series video, find out a little bit more about the smart grid, and then have a follow-up activity that they can assign to their students to go explore a little bit further. The career section is still under construction, but here highlighting some various careers where students can enter the workforce and find meaningful employment in the energy sector. And working with our partners at MBCC, UNB, Mount A, St. Thomas, and U2M to develop those career profiles. And then a call to action for future partners as well. If they want to engage in the Center of Excellence, click the link and we become connected, and we can work on creating more opportunities for students and teachers and classrooms across the province. So that's a sneak peek of what's happening behind the scenes, and a little interview or introduction to the Center of Excellence for Energy. And at this point, I will stop sharing my screen and pass the mic over to Brad Wasson, who is the Chief Digital Innovation Officer for NB Power, to share some of the exciting changes that are happening at NB Power. So Brad, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Adam. And is there a way for me to share any slides? I don't have the usual share presentation, but an alternative. Adam, I sent you my presentation.
Okay.
Maybe you could open it if you see it in your email.
I do.
And maybe you could just throw it up there and I'll speak to it.
And Brad, while he's doing that, now I see why you're the head of innovation. I mean, you've got all angles covered. I don't even have to bug Jeff. You've got Adam doing this for you.
That's right.
Good work.
Yeah, well, maybe just while Adam's stick handling that. Perfect. Thank you, Adam.
My pleasure.
Again, Brad Wasson. So I've been with NB Power now for about 9 years. Spent about 25 years before that working in the high-tech sector in different parts of Canada and in the United States even, and came to NB Power at a time when the utility and a lot of electrical utilities across the world are going through a lot of change. It was kind of an exciting time to join. I came in and started working on the smart grid program originally, and smart grid is essentially adding intelligence to the grid, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a couple minutes. But along the road, I was also offered this opportunity to be the Chief Digital Innovation Officer. In our world, that means I've had responsibility for the IT organization, the Information Technology Organization, and our core innovation program for emerging technologies at NB Power as well. So this is kind of the second presentation I've given that's around kind of supporting this Center of Excellence for Energy and its evolution. And I think this will be a continuing dialogue that we will have between NB Power people and the COE as it continues to evolve and as we go forward. It's a great opportunity for all of us. And part of what my intention has been in my first presentation and this one today is to start just building some literacy and understanding around the electric industry and how it's changing and how it's evolving. And I'll do that here this afternoon. We'll chat a little bit about, I think we've got about maybe 30 minutes here to talk about what's changing and what's happening and how that's being impacted by the evolution of the school system and how it's training and teaching and learning is all evolving and producing the employee of the future that we are looking for. And as Adam mentioned, there's just huge opportunities in this sector, but the electricity sector is not one that comes to front of mind for a lot of people because they just haven't maybe been exposed to it in the past or have any really understanding of what this invisible product that you really have a hard time interacting with because you can't see it, you can't taste it, you can't smell it, and generally you just assume it's always there for you until such time as you don't have it. And so building this literacy through stakeholders involved with the Center of Energy, such as yourselves, is a great opportunity for us, and we greatly appreciate it. And we're so excited about what is happening and what's transforming here and to be a part of it. So Adam, maybe on to the next slide there. A little bit of a context to digital transformation. So at the first presentation I did on this, I would have talked about a relationship, which is called the social compact between the people of New Brunswick, the government, and the utility, represented by this triangle. And it forms really what's a natural monopoly for the utility. So on the one hand, the government has loaned capital dollars to the utility over the last 100 years to build the infrastructure that we provide the electricity on, that goes to the businesses and the homes of people in New Brunswick. The people that use the electricity have been asked or required to purchase that electricity from the utility, building a closed loop system. And the regulator is a third-party entity that was created way back at the beginning to oversee the operations of the utility. And really what that came down to was to ensure that the costs associated with building infrastructure to allow electricity to be produced and moved around the province, the costs were kept to a minimum to ensure that the rate that the customer pays for the service is as low as possible. And so today, a little over now 100 years since we began this, we have really a fully built out system from the original concept of what an electricity system was, and now it's starting to evolve because some factors we're going to talk about in a second here, but essentially when we started building over 100 years ago, the concept was that you would build kind of monolithic electricity generation stations that were managed centrally but decentrally located around the province for various reasons. They were sited near natural resources, or in the case of our nuclear facility, they were built kind of near a large center, but not so close that you would be subject to a nuclear incident happening, that kind of thing. So the context around digital transformation that's going on at NB Power is mimicking what's happening in the world of electricity all over the globe. Many of the utilities are more or less the same age because the science around electricity and understanding how to harness that really came about around the turn of the century in 1900. And in 1920 here in New Brunswick, our government believed that the only way that you could build infrastructure to serve all the people and do it cost effectively was to centralize that build out in an entity which became known as the New Brunswick Electric Power Commission. And so on to the next slide there, Adam. So I just wanted to give you one more little contextual piece, and then we'll talk about some of the changes that are going on. So if you think of NB Power as this kind of little graphic there in the very center towards the bottom, our business model that we have that underpins our business and how we operate, it's influenced by a whole bunch of forces. So if you look at the stack from the top to the bottom, there's a list there: the Electricity Act, legislation, the mandate letter, etc. These are formal constructs that govern our operations. So the Electricity Act has been around almost 100 years, and it defines what the electric utility actually does. Then, of course, there's legislation that we are subject to. The mandate letter refers to the party in power, the government that's in power. When they come into existence every 4 years or so, they can give us direction about what they'd like us to focus on in the 4 years when they're in power. So that could be economic development, or it could be renewable energy, or or any other of a myriad of topics that are important to them that were probably part of their platform. So that influences our operation. Then there's policy. There's internal strategies that we have for managing infrastructure. So the integrated resource plan is one of those, and the business strategy, etc. We're also very much influenced by the markets and how they're changing. We buy and sell energy on a market to neighboring jurisdictions. So we sell electricity that we produce when we have access. We sell it into neighboring jurisdictions like Quebec and Nova Scotia, Prince Edward Island, and we also sell down into the eastern seaboard of the United States through the state of Maine. And of course, we have customers, and their needs, they're constantly changing and evolving, so we need to take that into consideration. And also the requests of our regulator, really around cost management is kind of what that is primarily focused on. Okay, so next slide. So that's a little bit of a context of how we're set up. Forces of change are really important to understand today in the world of electricity, because a lot of things are changing. In a moment, and for the rest of the half dozen slides I've got, I'm going to give you examples of technologically or digitally based changes that we're dealing with. But one of the kind of context I think it's important for people to keep in mind about us is, just like other businesses in the world, we are subject to a whole range of forces of change, whether they're economic, social, technological, environmental, or political. We are subject to these changes that are happening in the world. And one of the real significant changes for utilities are the forces of the fourth industrial revolution, which you'll see kind of spanning from economic, social, and technological domains of change that are around us. So these fourth industrial revolution forces are what are driving a lot of the adoption of digital technologies in our society. Think of smartphones and electric vehicles and solar panels and electrical storage devices, and all these types of technologies that are emerging in our world. A lot of those things are driven by the capabilities that have come out of the fourth industrial revolution. So those are ones that we track very, very closely as well. There's also a pretty substantial amount of environmental change that's going on, relating to carbon and climate change initiatives that are going on in the world that we are subject to. And of course, there's always political changes, balances of power. The National Building Code is a really kind of fascinating force of change for a utility. The Building Code says that by 2030, all new construction is supposed to be based on what's called net zero principles, which is that the energy that the building consumes is equal to the amount of energy that it produces. And you get what's called a net zero effect. So the energy essentially equates to zero if you look at how much does it consume from heating or cooling the building, as opposed to how much energy it produces, say, from solar panels that are stored on its rooftop. So that's something that's in the building code. So we're subject to that force, or a force of change, because that influences how people are building and constructing buildings and homes, whether they're residential, commercial, industrial, and what type of energy is going to be used in them, and what types of electrical systems might be part of that. Okay, next slide. So I'm going to give you a few kind of examples of digital change that's going on in the utility that will eventually, these things will become pretty well known to society. They're things that are maybe not high on the digital literacy scale today, but through programs like this Center of Excellence for Energy, we're going to be teaching and talking to students and other stakeholders, teachers, and so forth about all these concepts. And I'm going to give you a bit of a treetop view of what some of these things are that we're going to be talking about. So in the first 100 years of our existence, from 1920 to 2020, NB Power was largely in the business of building infrastructure, so putting the poles and the wires in the ground. And for the most part, those were mechanical power engineering devices. So the DNA of the company was a lot of power engineering type people, accountants, legal people, and regulatory based people that were associated with establishing the business and building infrastructure. We built a whole series of what's today 13 decentralized plants with centralized control that's done in Marysville, across the river here in Fredericton. And we're characterized by very low energy literacy level in the public. Again, as I kind of mentioned before, there was a bit of a trend that you might not know very much about electricity, except for when you don't have it, and then you really want it, because it now underpins all aspects of our lives and our daily well-being, the way we communicate and learn and get entertainment, all these things, underpinnings of the healthcare system, and how, if something goes wrong and you have to go to the hospital, all these, these capabilities that we've taken for granted today, in many cases, are based on electricity. The next 100 years, as we look forward, a lot of change is currently underway and has already set roots and will be expanding as we go forward. So one of those, for example, would be small-scale localized energy production. So instead of having big plants that we have situated around the province, our customers themselves can produce electricity. So they're able to put solar panels on the roof of their homes, or build a biomass facility, or have a small-scale wind farm, or maybe it's community energy, like we see in Shediac with a project we have going on in there. We're building kind of a larger solar facility that's built in a stream. That's going to be streaming energy from a field of solar panels. Another change that we're seeing is the intelligence that's being added to equipment. So in the first 100 years, we rolled out a lot of mechanical equipment, and a lot of that equipment now is having intelligence added to it. So think of it this way. You're essentially bolting on to something that was formerly a mechanical device, intelligence from a computer chip, or as we often refer to, an Internet of Things, an IoT-based piece of technology that's giving that formerly mechanical piece of equipment some intelligence. And typically that intelligence is information about what it's doing, how it's operating, its current state, how it's evolving over time. Is it wearing out? Is it need of maintenance? That type of thing. So that intelligence is coming through connected computer devices that we put on equipment that streams data that we can monitor in real time remotely to determine whether that asset that we own that makes up the electrical system, if it's behaving properly or working well, that sort of thing. Consumers are becoming energy producers. So as I mentioned, if you put solar panels on the roof of your house, the technology today is capable of having enough energy produced for you to satisfy your own needs and then have a little extra. What do you do with that extra? Well, maybe you could sell it to your neighbor, or maybe you could aggregate it together with your neighbors and your community could have extra energy. And now you can store that energy in a battery, or perhaps you could sell it back to the utility and make money from it. So there's a variety of ways that consumers are becoming energy producers and actually potentially participants in the market around electricity. Those consumers are becoming more digitally savvy, and these are big areas of change for us. To think about today, the literacy level of using computing equipment, it's second nature to almost everybody in society now. Smartphones, communication devices, all these things are things that we've become completely comfortable with. That's going to happen with the energy-related assets as well. We still have fairly low energy literacy level and digital literacy levels, but they're growing. And through programs like the Center for Excellence in Energy, we can continue to grow those things by working directly with students and teachers to build that literacy level. So that's one of the really exciting things for NB Power, and one of our reasons we want to be involved in this. And the DNA that is formerly power engineers and accountants and legal people, that sort of thing, it's changing. And it's giving rise for the need for new roles inside the utility that are going to be filled by the students of the future, including, students that are graduating this year from grade 12 and going forward. So what are some of those roles? I'm going to intersperse in some examples here in some remaining slides. I'll give you a little bit more examples of this, but students that have background in digital things, so whether it's computer science or engineering, those types of learning disciplines and the jobs that go with them, they're certainly very common for roles at NB Power. People that are in the world of data science, so that are understanding how to manage data, to get insights out of data, to connect pieces of data together, to do analytics, those types of things. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. Marketing and sales, as our business model changes and we're offering new products and services in the marketplace, then we need more marketing and sales people. Human resources, think how much the world has changed in the last 18 months or so with the pandemic. And we know that businesses are changing everywhere, and expectations of employees are changing, and the way that we work, working remotely versus in buildings, and all those sorts of things. So the rise of additional skills in HR, human resources, is very, very prevalent. Environmental health and safety, it's a big part of the utility work. We're very focused on safety, and we have a very strong safety culture, and that's evolving as the infrastructure changes, and the way that we do work is changing as we adopt more digital approaches to doing things. And of course, software developers are very commonly needed, and will be more and more of that in the future. Our business model is changing, and we need more business savvy people. The business model that we have today was largely built on the concept of recovering the costs associated with building the infrastructure that's been deployed over the last 100 years. But as we go forward, new lines of business may be selling electricity in new ways, or enabling new types of sales like electric vehicle charging stations or storage devices or things like that. You know, that could be part of our future. That's changing our business model. And so we need more business savvy people that, you know, are looking at or have the capability of understanding how the world is working in new business areas, that sort of thing. And finally, diversity, a big change in the DNA. The world is changing. We're a much smaller global village. We have more immigration in the province. We have, you know, the opportunity to build diversity in all the meanings of diversity, whether it's social, whether it's academic, intellectual, etc. All those parts of diversity need to be reflected in the workforce of the future at NB Power. Okay, Adam, next slide. So one of the things that, you know, as we go forward over the next, you know, year or so and beyond, working with the Center of Excellence in Energy, the digital grid is a concept that constantly comes up. It's really an intelligent, living, two-way network, we like to call it. So at one time, we would produce energy at a plant and then move it over the transmission and distribution system until it got to your house or into the building that you might be working in, or a school. But now there's the capability to feed electricity two directions, so back and forth on that grid system, and to take advantage of that capability. And that's what a smart grid has really enabled us to do, is to enable the communication of energy-related things back and forth across a grid system. And the Internet of Things devices, which I mentioned, are adding intelligence to the grid, which is enabling us to do that. There's also the capability of building integrated communications for real-time information and control that we've never had before. So what I'm specifically talking about there is, as we instrument the grid and add intelligence to it, we can monitor its operation in real time. And as we add in real-time components, we can better keep downtime of the grid to a minimum. We can also help our customers optimize their use of the electrical system if we can provide feedback in real time on things like, how much energy are you using? How, you know, what devices could you turn off in your home to save energy because maybe they don't need to run at the moment, that sort of thing. So that real-time insight into how the grid is working is going to be really paramount to optimizing the use of electricity, and that will have a direct influence on climate change as we go forward. Advanced components, and one of the words that you'll be hearing kind of going forward over the next while would be distributed energy resources, or DERs as we call them, DERS, that's the acronym. That refers to kind of the small-scale localized energy assets that customers or the utility are putting in place. So solar panels or solar inverters, biomass facilities, wind facilities. It could be energy storage devices, electric vehicles charging stations, etc. This class of new asset we're calling distributed energy resources, and they're starting to proliferate across the grid system. And the more things that are out there, the more things we have to manage. And so as we create a digital grid, we have a better hope of being able to manage those devices and ensure that we don't have failures of the electrical system, which has an impact on society's well-being. And last, I'm going to improved interfaces and decision support. That kind of refers to the ability to collect data about what's happening on the grid system in real time and feed that data into decision support systems or into software systems that are used by people that manage the grid on an ongoing basis so that we can get real-time information about what's happening. Okay, next slide there, Adam. So grid management. So I'm going to talk, I think for the next, I've got 4 slides here, I think, and I'm going to talk about 4 or 5, maybe it is, specific examples of grid operations that are changing because of digital, and some of the roles and experiences that we would like our future employees to have. So grid management refers to operating the transmission and distribution grid. So the transmission grid is that system that moves electricity from a plant to a substation. So it's high energy, the big tall poles and wires that you see that move energy over a long distance. The distribution grant is the connection point from a substation into a home or building. We lower the voltage or the energy at a substation so it becomes a more manageable and safer level, and we move that energy from the substation through the distribution grid to the homes and buildings. So when we talk about grid management, we're really talking about the operation of the transmission and distribution grids together. So as I've been mentioning, we've been instrumenting the physical assets that make up the transmission and distribution grids by adding IoT devices or network connected computer technologies to these mechanical pieces of equipment to give them intelligence. So as we do that, that opens up worlds of things like data analytics. So we can collect information from those assets about what they're doing, maybe their temperature, their operating conditions, so we can feed that information into a maintenance program to minimize downtime or to swap out and repair assets before they go to failure, to be proactive in preventative maintenance, that type of thing. We're also using today technologies like 3D printing. And as we go forward, we see 3D printing as an opportunity to use, when you use metal-based filaments in those, we could actually reproduce parts for our physical equipment or assets that need repair. Maybe we can actually even do that in the field by putting a 3D printer in a truck and driving a truck to a site and actually custom printing something right on site. So that might be, potential in the future. Augmented virtual reality, great example. So those terms refer to using computer technologies to build environments with headsets that allow people to explore learning or a skill development in a computer environment that mimics what's in the real world. And we actually are doing this at NB Power. If you see in this little picture here, the gentleman on the left, he has a set of goggles on. Now he's actually operating that drone that you see in the picture, but he also has a set of goggles on that would allow him to virtually understand what's happening in this scene and learn in real time about how it's working. So this is technology that we're actually working with at NB Power as well, and we're using it. We're starting to use it to do training of field technicians that are using, that are working on field maintenance of assets. And we look forward, what kind of roles might we see in the utility? Well, even traditional linesmen, the people that physically climb poles and put equipment on them, they need to be technically savvy. So they're using computer equipment, smartphones, and software to do analysis in the field where they're working. The trucks that they are working and driving are instrumented with technologies that help them to better plan their day, to bring real-time information about schematics and training manuals and stuff right to the field with them. So all of those people, they need to be technically savvy. And generally for us, that means that they're people with science backgrounds that understand computers and data and perhaps even engineering type of understandings. Power engineering is now implementing digital solutions. I've mentioned a few of those. Data scientists, this is very much the world of what we live in today. Many of us, in fact, I think everybody on the call or people that are going to be watching this, the recording, we very much are data scientists ourselves. When you sit down at your computer and you open a browser and you go to Google and you type a query like, show me all the new cars that are available in 2021, whatever, and you get a result set back in the browser and window and you start clicking on links. Well, you're essentially working as a data scientist. You're exploring a data set. And that's part of what we are doing as human beings now. But inside the utility, we have formal programs to build data scientist capabilities. So people that are interested in the math and the science, that are interested in using software to connect to data and analyzing data, and then presenting that data visually in ways that people can understand it. That's very much a part of our future. Developers, software developers, I mean, our world is filled with opportunities for software developers. I think most people are familiar with that. We have a very large digital program at NB Power. So much of our world is digitally based and software based, and we have complement and are constantly looking for people that have these types of skill sets. One thing I think it's important to point out that at the very last bullet here under roles, I have storyboard, animators, graphic artists, and simulators. So in the technologies that we're deploying in the utility for our staff, we are constantly looking at the capabilities of building virtual environments, telling stories, training people through animations, and that requires a whole new different type of skill set. Graphic artists that can produce realistic life images, people that can build animated storyboards, gaming environments, who are familiar with simulation tools. Minecraft, as an example, is a simulation tool that most of the students in the school system have touched, that Microsoft gaming environment. So these are all parts and parcels of the types of staff that we're looking for in the future as we go forward. And the education system's the way to tell our students that there are jobs in the utility that do this type of work, and we need these people. Next slide. Customer service. So we have about 400,000 customers in the province, and dealing with customers is a routine part of business. Every business does this. We have, for the first time in the last month or so, hired our very first Chief Customer Officer. And this person is responsible for evolving the way that we relate to our customer. So as we build digital literacy, as we get more technically savvy customers that are looking for new ways to interact with the utility, that are looking for new tools to better understand their energy use or to pay bills, etc., we have to evolve our relationship with our customer. And that's what our customer service organization does, and our new Chief Customer Officer is responsible for. The interactions that we have with our customers in the first 100 years, they kind of evolved from, in the early days, from you had to walk into an office to pay a bill, and then eventually you got your bill in the mail, and maybe you drive to the bank or go to a teller, whatever, and then you would pay your bill. And through that process, we actually have learned over the years that most of our customers actually pay attention to the utility for about 9 minutes every year. So that's not a lot of thought time from a customer about the utility, and that 9 minutes would, be a lot of it for paying the bill that they have. But in the next 100 years, and where we are today and where we're going, we are very interested in multi-channel connectivity. So that is connecting to the customer in ways the customer wants to be connected to, through the web, whether that's on a phone or mobile device, an iPad, a browser somewhere, through talking to a human agent, or perhaps talking to a software bot, like a chat bot, like we do today when we go shopping online and we interact with a chat bot and we ask questions and we get information. We need to expand that customer service presence. So the roles that we see evolving are not necessarily deep into technology. Yeah, there's always going to be software developers and things like that. But the type of person that we're looking for is someone that's very good with social interaction, can understand customers. They're technically savvy, but not necessarily developers. They're empathetic. They understand people that are maybe under stress, don't have a lot of time, and they're very interested in being able to connect to the utility and solve a problem as quickly as possible. Those people also need to be flexible. So they probably have multiple skills. So they've got maybe a little bit of a technology bent to them, but they're also very familiar. They can write, they communicate, they can speak. Perhaps they're multilingual, and they embrace diversity in all the ways that we interact with our customers. Those are the types of people and students that we'll be looking for in the future. Next slide. Plants. So I mentioned, and you'll see here, this is Mactaquac. This is our largest hydro facility. And so as we evolve, we're going to be evolving from having just these big plants to small scale localized energy production, as I mentioned. So plants in the future could be and so almost certainly will be, a collection of aggregated energy source from neighbors living together in a community. And we're building one of those communities right now in Shediac to do this very things. So plants are and will continue to switch from fossil fuel burning fuels to renewable non-emitting sources. That's a big change that's going on. And a lot of that, again, is small scale, localized right onto a rooftop as an example. And plants are being automated with real-time sensors, which I've mentioned a few times. So IoT devices collecting information to feed often a digital twin. And a digital twin, I'm going to give you just a picture of one in just a second, and maybe help you understand what that is. But a digital twin is an environment that you build in software that mimics the operation of, in this case, a plant. Now you could model something else, but we modeled plants. And we build a computer-based model of a plant, and then on the actual equipment in the plant, we put sensors on them so that they can report status information about how a piece of equipment is actually operating. We feed that data to the digital twin and software so that we can assess remotely and in real time what's actually happening, and then we can run scenarios on that, and we can absolutely figure out what equipment is working well and not working well, and how it might change and evolve over time, so we can run preventive maintenance programs, which save us money and keep costs low. If you turn to the next slide there, Adam, you'll see a bit of a picture of kind of conceptually that you have a turbine there, and that turbine is instrumented with sensors that feed a digital model, which is simulated visually there on that slide. So digital twins, these are kind of new technologies that are being introduced. And again, we need resources that are familiar with working with digital twin type models daily in their workspace. So that could be, again, engineers or computer scientists or science-oriented people. This is kind of hardcore technology, and I'm giving an example there. Okay, next slide. I just got 2 slides left and we're done here. So our office workers are changing as well. So I think everybody knows, certainly in the education system, how much change the pandemic has had on the way that we live our lives and the way that we communicate with people and teach students, and it's the same inside all the working businesses of the world. So one of the names of the game for us in the utility world is speeding up how we provide insights to our business staff so that they can take proactive action on the future. So all this instrumentation of digital things that I'm referring to, ultimately it produces data, collecting data and putting it in computer systems, and then making that information available as close as we can to real time to our staff allows the office worker to make good decisions about business activities. One example of that is in the finance area. As we automate routine financial operations through automation, then we can make the human people spend more time, or we can allow human people to spend more time on complex decision making that's not easy to mimic in computer systems. So this is one of the ways that our office workers are changing. So some of the roles of those people and the attributes of people that are working in the new electrical industry, people are, first of all, they're more mobile themselves, so they need to be able to work remotely. They need to be, again, I've used the phrase a few times, technically savvy, or comfortable using technology, connecting to meetings like we are today, where you might be virtual or a team of people might be virtually, being able to work, again, flexibly across computer systems that are connected through telecommunications. But those same people, generally multidisciplinary background. So there's always a role for a specialist, but the more general knowledge that you have across a number of disciplines. So as we teach our students that, maybe you're really good in math, but you got to be able to write too, or you need to be able to communicate. Those messages are so strong because the more we do remotely, the more multidisciplinary backgrounds we need to be effective. Problem solving is a core to business in the world we live in today, and problem solvers are absolutely going to be required. People that are good at tackling difficult problems and thinking about solutions, and particularly working in team-based environments. There, you need to be socially aware. As we build diversity, different backgrounds, whether it's academic or social cultural backgrounds are different. We need to be socially aware of how to work together effectively and to communicate well. So those are some of the attributes we're looking for that. The technology, it's all about collaboration software like Teams we're using today, or Zoom or Hangouts from Google, or whatever technology. There's many out there. Mobile app development is a big part of this, as we provide more capability on smartphones because they allow you to connect to the office environment wherever you are. Analysis type tools like Microsoft Excel and Power BI and technologies like that. Maybe later on we can deep dive and get some examples of how you visualize data using these types of technologies, but that's a big part of it. Math, science, reading, all of those core disciplines are critical for the office worker of the future. And my last slide there, Adam. I just wanted very quickly to touch on regulatory. So this is, there wouldn't probably be a person in school that would necessarily even know what this is if you think of K to 12, but regulatory work is critical to the operations of the electrical system. So the regulator oversees our operations to make sure that what we are charging our customer is fair and equitable for the service that you are receiving. This is a very complex type of a role that's in the world of electricity, but critical to its operation. These types of people are often, there may be legal backgrounds, or they're people that are very familiar with business type environments and how they are best served by an oversight of a monopoly. So kind of deep into the world of understanding business. But, even in K to 12, you find people that are entrepreneurial in nature. Those are great types of people to work in a regulatory process as it evolves going forward. They need to be able to modify regulations. So that's looking at laws and determining how to change them, or changing policies that we might have, influencing business model changes or changes in climate nature and things like that, or how we're responding to climate change. That would be all part and parcel of kind of things that go on the regulatory paradigm. Highly varied roles: business, legal, political, science-oriented people, and people with arts backgrounds, good communicators, thinkers, practical thinkers, those types of things. Excuse me. And of course, technological people for broad adoption of digital technologies and understanding how that fits into the regulatory paradigm. So that's kind of what I wanted to cover today. Happy to take any questions, or at any time in today or in the future. This is a bit of a broad brush, kind of how the utility world is changing. It's intended to complement the other presentation that I did about, how does the electricity system actually work? But hopefully this gives you a little bit of insight as to how we're changing and some of those roles that we're starting to fill and we're looking for as we go forward, and how the students of the future, what skill sets they're going to need and what they might be doing if they came and worked for the utility. So I hope that's been helpful.
Thanks very much, Brad. I really enjoyed that presentation, and I've heard snippets of that along the way now a couple of times. But every time there's something new that I'm picking up on. And today, what I was really walking away with is that importance of global competencies, right? Those skills that like problem solving that you mentioned throughout your presentation that are going to be key to having students experience with and expertise in as they move into the workforce. So that was excellent. Matt, I don't know how we're doing for time. I think there's probably people itching to join the other party here and see if they've won prizes this afternoon. But really, thank you, Matt, and thank you, Brad, for this opportunity this afternoon to speak.
Yeah, thanks for that, Adam and Brad. That was really cool. I learned a lot, just from my own perspective as a homeowner and power consumer, and I think it makes me want to generate my own power, actually. But I really appreciate that, and I think it's good for teachers and people who are working in the education system to get more educated in that, to share these opportunities with students, because as we've heard today and as we're hearing, energy is really important, more so than ever, really, these days. And I know a lot of students are very passionate about energy and their future being a clean and sustainable future. And just thanks for this to both of you, and hopefully we can have some traction in our school system to have students not only learning about, but creating better forms of energy for us. So thank you to you both.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. Thanks.
So this is our last session of the day, folks. As Adam mentioned, we're going to hop over, as you can, in the main LearnEast website, you can, in the sessions tab, you can find our final closing remarks, and I will see you there in a few minutes. Have a great day, and thanks for joining us, everyone.
Thanks,
Take
Matt.
care.
Thank you.